I shelled out $20,000 for a family trip to Hawaii. But at the airport, my son told me, "I forgot to get you a ticket. Just head home." They had intended to leave me behind from the very start. 3 weeks later, they came back, laughing, bronzed, and carefree, until their eyes widened when they spotted a man in a suit standing beside me. Because that man was their new landlord. And every key they used to own was no longer theirs. You know that gut-wrenching feeling, the one that twists your stomach into knots when you realize someone you love, someone you raised, has just plunged a knife right into your back? I never thought I'd experience it. Not from my own son, Simon. But there I was, in a crowded airport, watching him tell me he'd forgotten my ticket to a $20,000 Hawaiian vacation, a trip I paid for. And in that moment, something icy cold clicked in my brain. This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated, heartless betrayal, and it was about to change everything. "Dad, I have some bad news." Simon's voice, usually so easygoing, sliced through the airport's cheerful hum like a shard of glass. I stopped dead, my rolling suitcase thudding against my leg. We were at the Hawaiian Airlines counter, surrounded by excited families, some with flower leis already draped around their necks. "What kind of bad news?" I asked, but a cold dread was already coiling in my gut. He wouldn't look at me, just stared at the departure board, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "I forgot to buy your ticket." The words hung there, sickeningly. All the cheerful chatter, the talk of sandy beaches and luau's, suddenly sounded like a cruel, mocking joke. "You forgot?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Simon, we've been planning this trip for 3 months." He finally met my gaze, but only for a fleeting second. I know. It was just so much to coordinate with work being crazy and all. My blood ran cold. "I gave you $20,000, Simon, for all of us. The whole family." He nodded, almost dismissively. "Right. And we're grateful, Dad, really." He glanced at his watch, then towards the boarding gates. "But the flight's almost ready for boarding." I was already moving, pulling my suitcase, its wheels snagging, my shoulder jerking. No, this had to be fixable. It just had to be. "Excuse me." I called to the agent, my voice a desperate plea. Her uniform was impossibly crisp, her smile perfectly professional. "I need to check what flights you have to Honolulu today." Her fingers danced across the keyboard. "Name on the reservation, sir?" "Lee Willis," I said, my heart pounding, but there might be an issue with my booking. More typing. A pause. Her smile faltered. "I'm not seeing any reservation under that name, sir." "Are you sure it was booked with Hawaiian Airlines?" My chest constricted. No, it had to be there. My family. I spun around, looking for Simon. He was nowhere near me, pacing agitatedly by the security checkpoint entrance. "Let me try a broader search," the agent offered, her brow furrowing with genuine concern. "What dates were you looking to travel?" "Today. Right now. My son and his family should already have their tickets." She nodded, typing again. The screen glowed in her glasses. I do see a reservation for a Simon Willis. Party of 4 departing at 4:15. But there's no Lee Willis on that booking. The terminal seemed to physically tilt. "That's impossible." "Check again." "I've checked twice, sir." She paused. "Would you like me to see what's available on standby?" A tiny spark of hope. "Yes. Anything." "I'm so sorry, but we're completely booked today. There's a convention in Honolulu." "What about tomorrow?" "First class?" "I'll pay whatever it costs." "Anything?" Simon suddenly appeared at my elbow, his hand clamping around my arm. "Dad, we need to talk." I shook him off, my gaze fixed on the agent. "Not now. We're figuring this out." No, we're not. His grip tightened, dragging me away from the counter. This isn't going to work. The agent watched, concern etched on her face. Passengers stared. A child pointed at my suitcase, now toppled. What do you mean it's not going to work? I stared at my bag, my hands trembling. There has to be another airline, another flight. Dad, listen to me. Simon's voice was sharper, colder than I'd ever heard. The vacation is happening today. Right now. My family is already through security. So, we find another way to get me there. No. The word was flat. Final. We don't. The departure board flickered. The 4:15 Hawaiian flight now screaming final boarding call in pulsing red letters. Simon, you're scaring me. What is going on? He checked his watch again, aggressively. What's going on is that you need to go home, Dad. We'll manage the vacation somehow. Manage? My voice cracked. I paid for everything. The hotel, the car rental, the activities for the kids. And we appreciate that, but right now standing here arguing isn't helping anyone. The air conditioning hummed, but I felt scalding hot, dizzy. Nothing made sense. 3 months of planning, $20,000, family dinners filled with talk of snorkeling and sunset cruises, and now Simon was treating me like an inconvenient obstacle. Just go home, he repeated, already backing towards security. We'll call you from the hotel. That's when I saw it in his eyes. Not panic about a forgotten ticket. Not guilt over a mistake. It was pure, unadulterated relief. Simon turned and walked towards the gate, just leaving me standing there alone in the middle of that bustling terminal, watching my son disappear into the crowd like he'd been planning this moment all along. The Hawaiian Airlines counter, moments ago a source of frantic hope, suddenly felt like my only anchor in a world that had gone completely sideways. I walked back to the same agent. She recognized me immediately. Sir, were you able to work things out with your family? Actually, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, I need you to check something for me. That reservation under Simon Willis. When was it made? She hesitated, glancing where Simon had vanished. I'm not supposed to share booking details, but... Her fingers flew. It shows here it was booked 6 weeks ago. Party of 4, 2 adults, 2 children. 6 weeks ago. Not 3 months when we'd started planning. Not last week when he claimed he was finalizing everything. 6 weeks ago, he'd already decided I wouldn't be included. No changes were ever made to add more passengers? No, sir, she confirmed softly. The reservation has remained unchanged since the initial booking. My legs went weak. I gripped the cool metal counter. What about other airlines? Anything to Honolulu today, tomorrow, this week? She checked, her expression growing more sympathetic. I'm afraid it's convention season. United has a waiting list of 47. Alaska is booked solid through next Tuesday. Next Tuesday. The words tasted like ash. The vacation would be half over by then. There is one option, she offered quietly. Southwest has a red-eye tonight. 2 stops. Gets you in Thursday afternoon, but it's quite expensive without advanced booking. $1,800. I reached for my wallet, then stopped. In the distance, I could see Simon's gate. He'd be there now, probably. Texting Fern, telling her the problem, me, had been dealt with. The agent's voice seemed to come from a long tunnel. He knew, I said, more to myself than to her. All along, he knew. I looked at her kind face, her genuine concern for a confused old man, and suddenly felt a flush of embarrassment. This wasn't her burden. This was ugly, private family business. The flight, I asked, is it still boarding? Final call was 10 minutes ago, she said. They're probably closing the doors now. As if on cue, an announcement crackled overhead. Hawaiian Airlines Flight 447 to Honolulu is now closed for boarding. All ticketed passengers should be on board. I turned towards the gate, watching the last few stragglers hurry down the corridor. Children, carry-ons, families, all heading to paradise together. My phone buzzed. A text from Simon. Sorry, Dad. We'll call from hotel. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Like I was some inconvenient package he'd finally offloaded. The agent cleared her throat. About that Southwest flight, sir. Would you like me to hold it? I stared at Simon's dismissive text. No explanation, no real apology, just a casual wave goodbye after taking $20,000 and 3 months of my hopeful anticipation. No, I said, sliding the phone into my pocket. No, I don't think so. Are you sure? I can hold it for 15 minutes. I'm sure. Because suddenly, standing there in that terminal, the scent of coffee and the rumble of luggage all around me, something crystallized. This wasn't about a forgotten ticket. It wasn't poor planning. It wasn't even just Simon's selfishness. This was about who they thought I was, who they thought they could treat like a fool. The departure board updated, Hawaiian Flight 447 now departed, in stark black letters. Simon and his family were airborne, probably toasting with complimentary drinks, congratulating themselves. I picked up my suitcase. I wasn't defeated. Not anymore. Every step away from that gate was a step towards clarity. They'd made a calculation about Lee Willis, that I would quietly go home, maybe grumble, and ultimately accept being discarded. They were about to learn how monumentally wrong they were. The automatic doors slid open, and I stepped into the afternoon air, already planning my next move. My destination wasn't Hawaii, but it was coming. And it definitely wasn't the one they expected. The taxi line was long, but I welcomed the wait. It gave me time to breathe, to let the chaotic fragments in my mind settle. Where to? The driver asked, a tired, middle-aged man who'd seen it all. Oakland, Montclair District. I sank into the back seat, Simon's pathetic text still glowing on my phone. As we pulled away from SFO, I watched the Bay Area landscape roll by. Houses where normal families were probably sitting down to dinner, sharing their days, making plans, not calculating how to exclude their own father. Rough day? The driver asked, catching my eye in the rearview mirror. Getting rougher by the minute, I mumbled. I'm not one for talking to strangers, but the anonymity of the taxi was strangely liberating. Ever have your family turn on you? He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Brother, I've got ex-wives who've been planning my downfall for years. Family's the ones who know exactly where to stick the knife. The knife? Yes, that's exactly what it felt like. Sharp, precise, aimed at something vital. As we drove, I started replaying the past few months in my head. March, when I'd first mentioned doing something special for the grandkids. Simon's immediate, almost too enthusiastic, Dad, that's a great idea. Leave everything to me. April, sitting around Fern's dining room table, looking at glossy hotel brochures. Pearl, my granddaughter, practically bouncing in her chair. Oh, Lee, this is so generous. Sol, her husband, usually quiet, nodding along. But now the signs were screaming. Simon insisting on handling all the bookings. Fern's subtle suggestion, I might be more comfortable in a different hotel, just in case the kids get too noisy. Pearl's offhand comment about how older folks sometimes prefer different activities. They'd been conditioning me to expect separation all along. You know what the worst part is? I said to the driver's reflection. What's that? They thought I'd just take it. Roll over and play dead. You planning to prove them wrong? I watched the Bay Bridge cables cut sharp patterns against the sky. I'm 68 years old. I worked 43 years as an engineer. I raised a son who apparently thinks I'm some kind of fool. But I didn't survive this long by letting people walk all over me. The driver chuckled. Now you're talking sense. My phone buzzed. A text from Fern. So sorry about the mix-up, Dad. We'll bring you back something nice from Hawaii. Mix-up. Like it was some clerical error, not a calculated, deliberate betrayal. I thought about the $20,000 I'd transferred to Simon's account 6 weeks ago. Easier to book everything from one source, he'd said. How easily I'd trusted him, how completely I'd been played. But as we exited onto Highway 24, heading towards my quiet house in the Oakland Hills, something inside me hardened. The hurt was still there, a raw, fresh wound. But beneath it, a pressure was building, like water behind a dam about to burst. They wanted to treat me like a doddering old man, easily discarded when convenient. They wanted my money, but not my presence at my own grandchildren's vacation. Fine. This particular old man still had a few moves left. The taxi pulled into my driveway just as the sun dipped behind the hills. The house looked exactly as I'd left it 3 hours ago. Neat, quiet, ready for a week of absence. But I wasn't the same man who'd locked that front door with such joyful anticipation. That'll be $47.50, the driver said. I handed him $60. Keep the change. And thanks for the conversation. He grinned. Whatever you're planning, I hope they deserve it. As his taillights vanished, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a number I hadn't called in months. Bruce Harland, my lawyer. If Simon wanted to play games with $20,000, we could play games. But first, I had some research to do. The key turned in the lock with its usual click, but nothing felt usual. I dragged my suitcase inside, its wheels catching on the doormat Martha and I had bought 20 years ago. This was the home where I'd planned to be packing for Hawaii tonight, not unpacking from nowhere. I changed into my comfortable cardigan and old cotton pants, the kind Simon always said made me look like an old professor. Tonight, that felt appropriate. I had studying to do. My office was exactly as I'd left it. Martha's oak desk by the window, filing cabinets like silent sentinels. Everything organized, everything in its place, unlike my family. I found the vacation folder in the second drawer, its tab labeled Hawaii 2025 in my careful handwriting. I pulled it out, spreading the contents across the leather desk, 23 documents, each one a piece of my trust, systematically betrayed. The travel agency invoice, $20,000 transferred to Simon's account 6 weeks ago. The hotel confirmation, Grandwa, Ocean View Suites, 7 guests, 10 nights. I counted the names. Simon, Fern, Pearl, Sol, Mia, Ethan, and then Martha Willis. My wife, who'd been dead for 3 years. They'd actually put Martha's name down instead of mine. The reservation, paid for with my money, didn't even include me. My hands shook as I picked up the hotel brochure, beautiful sunset photos, families playing in crystal clear water. Generations gathering at dinner, everything we talked about. Dad, you'll love the Ocean View Suite, Simon had said. The kids will have such amazing memories, Fern had added. All lies. I picked up the phone. Not my cell, but the old landline Martha insisted we keep. This moment needed the gravity of a real connection. Directory assistants connected me to the Grandwa Resort. Reservations, this is company. How may I help you? Her voice was pure, practiced Hawaiian warmth. I need to cancel a reservation under the name Willis. Let me pull that up for you. Willis? Yes. A reservation for 7 guests checking in tomorrow. Ocean View Suites for 10 nights. Are you sure you want to cancel, sir? Our resort is beautiful this time of year. I'm completely sure. May I ask why? Perhaps I can offer alternatives. Different room types, partial stays? No alternatives. Cancel everything. A pause. I could hear her typing, processing the absurdity of canceling such an expensive booking. Mr. Willis, I must inform you that canceling this close to arrival will result in significant penalties. The total cancellation fee would be $3,200. $3,200. Less than I spent on gas in a year. That's acceptable. Are you certain? This is a very substantial reservation. Perhaps if you spoke with our guest services manager. Cancel it now, please. More typing. The hum of a printer. The cancellation is processed. You'll receive confirmation via email within the hour. Is there anything else I can help you with? Actually, yes. When someone arrives tomorrow expecting that reservation, what will you tell them? I would inform them that the reservation was cancelled by the primary booking party at 6:47 p.m. Pacific Time on May 15th. Perfect. Simon would know exactly when I'd take action, and more importantly, he'd know it was deliberate. Thank you, company. You've been very helpful. I hung up, looking at the papers on my desk. In the corner, a framed photo from last Christmas. Simon, Fern, the kids, Pearl and Sol. All gathered around my tree, opening gifts I'd bought, eating food I'd catered, all of them smiling at the generous old fool. Well, the generous part was officially over. The next morning, the sunlight streaming through my curtains felt different. For the first time in weeks, since this whole vacation charade began, I'd slept deeply, dreamlessly, completely. No anxiety about packing, no phantom excitement about Pearl seeing the ocean, no mental lists of activities for the grandkids, just peace. I showered, dressed, and went to the kitchen. My old percolator gurgled cheerfully, filling the house with the same coffee aroma that had greeted Martha and me for 43 years. My cell phone sat charging on the counter. It showed missed calls, but I ignored it, pouring my coffee, adding cream. Some conversations required proper preparation. Finally, I picked it up. 56 missed calls, all from the same Hawaiian number. The call log told a story more dramatic than any novel. 11:47 p.m. Hawaii time, then 11:52, then 12:03 a.m. Every 15 minutes through the night. For 30 a.m., 5:15 a.m. Simon had been awake all night. Between the calls were texts, escalating in real-time panic. Dad, call me back. Urgent. Hotel says you cancelled everything. Dad, this isn't funny. Call now. Kids are crying. We have nowhere to go. Call me back. The timestamps painted a clear picture. They'd arrived at the Grand Wa around 3 p.m. Hawaii time yesterday, exactly 6 p.m. California time. Just as I was hanging up with Co, they'd walked up to that beautiful resort desk, excited, tired from travel, probably already planning their first sunset dinner, only to discover they had no rooms. I carried my coffee to the living room, settling into my favorite armchair by the window. Outside, my neighbor walked his golden retriever, the same route they'd taken every morning for 12 years. A normal Tuesday for everyone else. My phone buzzed again, another Hawaiian number. I let it ring. A voicemail notification popped up moments later. I played it. Dad, I don't know what you think you're accomplishing, but you need to fix this right now. We spent the night in the hotel lobby. Pearl hasn't stopped crying. The kids don't understand what's happening. This is cruel and unnecessary and completely unlike you. Call me back and fix this mess. Cruel and unnecessary. What an interesting choice of words coming from the man who'd left his own father stranded at an airport. My coffee tasted perfect. Brazilian blend, ground fresh yesterday when I'd still believed in family vacations, children's laughter, and 3 generations making memories together. I set the cup down and picked up my phone. Scrolling to Simon's Hawaii number, my finger hovered over the green call button. 6 weeks of planning, $20,000 transferred without question. 3 months of excited conversations about snorkeling, luau's, teaching Mia to body surf. All of it orchestrated to exclude me. Simon wanted to talk. Perfect. I had plenty to say, too. I pressed the call button. Simon answered before the first ring finished. Dad, finally. What the heck is going on? The hotel says you canceled our entire reservation. His voice was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. In the background, Fern's frantic voice, complete disaster. And one of the kids crying. Well, hello, Simon, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. How's your vacation going? Don't play games with me. We have nowhere to stay. Do you understand what you've done? I reached for Martha's old notepad, the one she always kept by the phone. Some conversations needed documentation. Actually, I understand perfectly. Tell me, when you planned to leave me at the airport yesterday, where exactly did you expect me to spend my vacation? A stunned silence on his end. The background voices quieted. Dad, that was completely different. This is about innocent kids. Were there innocent kids involved when you deliberately excluded me after taking my $20,000? That's not the same thing. I wrote down the time, 8:03 a.m. California, 5:03 a.m. Hawaii. Simon's voice was raw with exhaustion. Help me understand the difference, son. The difference is we're stuck in a foreign place with no money and kids who don't understand why their vacation got ruined. Interesting. Yesterday you told me to just go home when I was stuck in a foreign airport. What changed? Fern's voice grew louder. Simon, tell him about the credit cards. Credit cards? I made a note. Dad, we can't afford another hotel. Everything's booked solid because of some convention. We put the entire trip on credit, expecting to pay it off with, well, expecting different circumstances. You mean expecting to pay it off with my money while I sat home like a discarded piece of furniture? Stop being dramatic. This isn't about you anymore. It's about Pearl and the kids. It became about me the moment you took my money and excluded me from my own grandchildren's vacation. Simon's voice hardened chillingly. Fine. You want to play hardball? When I get back to California, you're going to regret this. You think you can. Manipulate this family with money? I wrote that down word for word. You're going to regret this. Simon, are you threatening me? I'm promising you that actions have consequences, old man. Old man. I noted that, too. You're absolutely right about consequences. For instance, the consequence of betraying someone's trust is that they stop trusting you. This is ridiculous. You're punishing children because you got your feelings hurt. I'm teaching adults that stealing $20,000 and abandoning family members has repercussions. We didn't steal anything. You gave us that money for a family vacation, which by definition includes family. Silence. Then Pearl's distant voice. Never should have listened. This is a disaster. Simon tried a different tactic. Dad, look. Maybe we handled things badly yesterday, but right now we need to focus on fixing the situation. Can you call the hotel and no? What do you mean, no? I mean the word no, Simon. It's what you should have heard yesterday when you suggested I just go home and miss my own grandchildren's vacation. This is insane. You're acting like some kind of vindictive. I hung up. The living room was perfectly quiet after Simon's screaming. Outside, a hummingbird hovered near Martha's old feeder, its wings a green blur. I looked at my notepad. Threats, insults, financial admissions, zero accountability. My phone immediately started ringing again. Hawaii. I turned it off and finished my coffee, watching the hummingbird flit between flowers with purpose. Some lessons couldn't be taught with words. Simon's threats glared back at me from the page. "You're going to regret this, old man." They looked even uglier in black and white. Martha's reading chair sat empty by the window, afternoon light slanting across the floral cushions she'd chosen 30 years ago. I could almost see her there, hands folded, waiting for me to ask the right question. "What would you do, Martha?" But I already knew. Martha never let anyone push her around, not even when it cost her friendships or comfort. She built a career in nursing by standing up to doctors who thought women belonged in the background. "Sometimes kindness gets mistaken for weakness," she used to say. "Don't let people confuse the two, Lee." I had been kind to Simon his whole life. Paid his college tuition, co-signed his first lease, covered his mortgage payments during job changes, funded vacations, school supplies for the grandkids, medical bills for Fern's surgery. Kindness. All of it interpreted as weakness. My office felt different now, sacred ground where important decisions were made. I opened the filing cabinet Martha had organized so perfectly, every folder in her neat handwriting. Financial family support. It contained 20 years of evidence, bank statements showing monthly transfers to Simon's mortgage, receipts for Mia's violin lessons, Ethan's soccer equipment, medical bills I'd quietly paid for Pearl's hip replacement, college fund contributions, birthday gifts, Christmas bonuses disguised as loans never repaid. $47,000 last year alone. I found Bruce Harlan's business card tucked behind Martha's emergency contact list. Harland and Associates, Estate Planning and Family Law. We'd worked together when Martha died, and Bruce handled everything with the kind of precision that made grief manageable. Bruce understood family obligations. He'd also understand when those obligations became exploitation. My investment portfolio sat in the bottom drawer. 43 years of engineering, real estate appreciation, retirement accounts, savings bonds, stock options from the tech companies I'd consulted for. Simon had no idea how much he was about to lose. The afternoon sun slanted lower, casting long shadows across my desk. Somewhere in Hawaii, my son was probably still trying to find another hotel, still convinced this was temporary frustration, something he could manipulate away with guilt or intimidation. He was about to learn the difference between temporary and permanent. I reached for the phone, Bruce's card steady in my hand. The numbers felt significant, like coordinates to a destination I'd been avoiding my whole life. Justice wasn't revenge. Martha taught me that revenge was messy, emotional, ultimately unsatisfying. Justice was clean, proportional, educational. Simon wanted to play hardball. Perfect. I'd spent 4 decades in corporate negotiations with men who thought engineering degrees made you soft. None of them made that mistake twice. The phone rang once. Twice. Harland and Associates. Jennifer speaking. "This is Lee Willis," I said, my voice firm. "I need an urgent consultation with Bruce about estate planning." The appointment was set for the next afternoon. I slept better that night than I had in months, waking up refreshed, clear-headed, ready for the drive to San Francisco. Bruce's office was on the 15th floor of a gleaming glass tower overlooking the bay. Polished marble, expensive wood, the kind of space that charged by the hour and delivered results worth every penny. "Lee, come in." Bruce stood to greet me, his handshake firm, reassuring. At 55, he had the calm confidence of a man who'd spent decades untangling other people's messy problems. I settled into the leather chair, spreading out my documentation like evidence in a trial, bank statements, receipts, threatening texts, notes from yesterday's call. "What's the situation?" Bruce asked, reaching for a legal pad. "My son has shown me who he really is," I said, my voice steady. "I need legal protection from his greed." The story spilled out methodically, chronologically, the planned vacation, Simon's deliberate abandonment, the hotel cancellation, the 56 desperate calls, and finally, those ugly threats when he realized I wouldn't be manipulated. Bruce took notes, asking clarifying questions that showed his deep experience with family disputes. How long has this financial dependency been going on? 20 years minimum. I have documentation back to his first mortgage. And the threats were specific? I wrote them down verbatim. I slid the notepad across his desk. You're going to regret this, old man. Actions have consequences. Bruce studied the notes, his expression grim. Lee, this sounds like attempted financial coercion. In California, that's grounds for disinheritance with legal protection against challenges. Meaning? Meaning if you choose to modify your will, we can structure it to withstand any attempt by Simon to contest it in court. The relief was physical, like shedding a crushing weight I hadn't even known I was carrying. I want him completely excluded, I said. Everything I've built goes to organizations that will actually use it for good. Bruce opened his computer. Let me walk you through the options. We can establish a new will with charitable beneficiaries, including specific language about why Simon is excluded. For the next hour, we discussed every detail. The Oakland Children's Education Foundation would receive the bulk of my estate. Engineering scholarships at UC Berkeley, a substantial endowment. Local senior services, community development programs, veterans assistance, causes that mattered, run by people who understood stewardship. The documentation you've provided shows a clear pattern of financial exploitation, Bruce said, reviewing my bank statements. Combined with the threatening language, it's ironclad grounds for disinheritance. How long will this take? I can have documents ready for signature by next week. We'll need witnesses, notarization, and I'd recommend a video recording of the signing to document your mental competency. Whatever it takes. Bruce leaned back, studying me carefully. Lee, this is permanent. Once executed, this will fundamentally change your family relationships. They changed first, I said. I'm just making it official. And you're certain about this? No second thoughts about the grandchildren? I thought of Mia and Ethan, their innocent faces at family dinners. I'd funded birthday parties I'd made possible. The children will be better served by scholarship programs than by inheriting money their father would control. Bruce nodded, satisfied. Then let's proceed. I'll draft comprehensive documents excluding Simon entirely and protecting your wishes from legal challenge. We shook hands, his grip conveying both professional competence and a deeper understanding. I'll call you when everything's ready for signature. Walking back through that marble lobby, I felt lighter than I had in years. The law was on my side. Justice would be served. Simon would finally learn that actions do have consequences. The elevator descended 15 floors, and with each floor, a little more of the crushing weight of betrayal lifted. Legal protection was coming. Real, permanent consequences for Simon's betrayal and threats. That week passed in a blessed, peaceful routine I'd neglected for months. Morning walks in my Oakland neighborhood. Afternoon reading in Martha's chair. Evening meals prepared without rushing to accommodate family calls or visits. No more constantly checking my phone for Simon's travel updates. No more worrying if Pearl would like the restaurant reservations I'd made or if Sol needed different activities for his arthritis. Just quiet, ordered days while Bruce prepared the legal documents that would change everything. Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Bruce's office. Lee, the documents are ready. Can you come in Monday for the signing? Absolutely. Just to confirm, you're still committed to these changes? More than ever. Monday morning found me back in Bruce's downtown office. This time, the conference room held more people, his secretary, Mrs. Chin, and a paralegal named David. Notary stamps and official forms were arranged like surgical instruments. This is a formal will execution, Bruce explained, his voice grave. Everything needs to be witnessed and notarized to prevent future challenges. The new will lay open before me. 23 pages of legal language that translated my quiet fury into permanent, undeniable consequences. Page after page detailed the exclusion of Simon Willis from any inheritance, the establishment of charitable trusts, the designation of Bruce as executor with full authority to distribute my assets according to my wishes. "Let me read the key provisions aloud," Bruce said. "The testator, Lee Willis, being of sound mind and clear judgment, hereby excludes his son, Simon Willis, from all inheritance due to demonstrated financial exploitation and threatening behavior toward the testator." The words felt powerful. Final. Furthermore, the testator designates the following charitable organizations as primary beneficiaries. Bruce continued through the list we'd carefully constructed. The Oakland Children's Education Foundation would receive $400,000. UC Berkeley's Engineering Scholarship Fund, $300,000. Senior Services, Veterans Assistance, Community Development, worthy causes run by grateful people instead of entitled family members. Mrs. Chin adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Willis, do you understand these provisions completely?" "Yes." "And you're executing this will freely, without coercion?" "Completely freely." David activated a video camera on a tripod. "For the record, please state your name and today's date." "Lee Willis, May 25, 2025. "And you're executing this will of your own free choice?" "I am." My signature felt steady on the official documents, each letter deliberate, unyielding. Mrs. Chin and David signed as witnesses, their presence ensuring no future court could question the validity of my decisions. The notary seal pressed into the paper with satisfying authority, making everything official under California law. "The original will remain in our security vault," Bruce said, handing me sealed copies. "These are your personal records. Keep one accessible, another in a safety deposit box." "When do you think they'll find out?" "That depends on when you choose to tell them." I tucked the envelope under my arm. It weighed like solid armor against future manipulation. "Their flight returns Thursday afternoon. They'll probably want some kind of family meeting about what happened." Bruce nodded knowingly. Family meetings after a crisis tend to reveal everyone's true priorities. Outside Bruce's office, San Francisco hummed with its usual energy. Business people, tourists, street performers, normal life. My personal world, however, had undergone a seismic shift. The drive home across the Bay Bridge, with Martha's favorite view of the skyline, felt different. She would have approved: clean, legal, proportional justice. Simon had made his choice at the airport when he decided I was disposable. Now he would live with the consequences. 2 weeks later, Bruce and I stood in the international arrivals terminal at SFO. I'd maintained my peaceful routine, but I'd also been mentally rehearsing this moment countless times. Bruce, calm as ever, checked his phone. "Flight 441 from Honolulu has landed. They'll be through customs shortly." The leather portfolio under his arm held the documents that would complete our mission. 3 weeks of planning, legal prep, psychological readiness, all culminating here. Passengers began to trickle through. Tan families, flowers, duty-free bags. The usual happy chaos of people returning from paradise. Then I saw them. Pearl first, chattering excitedly to Sol about something from the plane, her oversized hat, a Maui shopping bag. Sol followed, quietly pushing 2 large suitcases, the patient exhaustion of someone who'd listened to travel stories for 6 hours etched on his face. Behind them, Fern and the children. Mia in a grass skirt, clutching a plastic ukulele. Ethan with a lei of fake flowers. Both tired but beaming, scanning the crowd for familiar faces. Simon emerged last, casually checking his phone, a relaxed swagger to his step. His Hawaiian shirt hung loose over khaki shorts. He looked like a man whose problems were firmly behind him. And then Mia saw me. "Grandpa!" She broke away, running, her plastic ukulele bouncing. Ethan followed, his face lighting up with pure, unadulterated joy. "Grandpa, we missed you so much." Wait till you hear about the dolphins. I knelt, hugging them both, feeling their small arms wrap around my neck. The uncomplicated love only grandchildren can give. For a moment, the weight of what was about to happen pressed against my chest. But then I looked up. Simon had stopped dead. His relaxed vacation aura evaporated as he saw me. And then Bruce, taking in my lawyer's professional attire, the portfolio. Dad. Simon's voice was weary. What are you doing here? Welcoming you home, I said, standing up, gently positioning the children beside me. How was your vacation? Fern appeared at Simon's elbow, her expression shifting from confusion to alarm as she saw Bruce. Pearl, oblivious, began to gush. We went to the resort and they had this amazing breakfast buffet. Pearl, soul-cutting quietly, his accountant's instincts picking up the subtle, dangerous undercurrents. Maybe we should. Bruce stepped forward, his movement precise. Mr. Simon Willis. His voice, formal, resonated with official business. Simon's face went pale beneath his tan. Bruce extended the sealed manila envelope. Mr. Simon Willis. This is a copy of your father's revised last will and testament, executed on May 25, 2025. Simon's hands trembled as he took it. The airport noise, announcements, luggage wheels, conversations faded into background static. All eyes were on that envelope. What is this? Fern whispered, reading the return address on the envelope. Simon broke the seal with jerky movements, his vacation relaxation utterly gone. He unfolded the papers, his eyes darting across the legal text. I watched his face transform, confusion, then disbelief, then sheer unadulterated horror as he reached the passages about disinheritance. This can't be real, he said, barely a whisper. Fern leaned over his shoulder, reading the same devastating words, her face draining of all color. Lee, she said, trying for a reasonable tone. Surely we can work this out. Think about the children. They're your grandchildren. I did think about them, I replied, my voice calm. That's why I paid $20,000 for their Hawaiian vacation. Simon's head snapped up, his eyes blazing with desperate fury. You can't do this to us. I'm your son. Yes, I said. The son who left me stranded at an airport and threatened me when I finally stood up for myself. Pearl, finally grasping that something serious was happening, stopped chattering mid-sentence. Lee, what's going on? Why does everyone look so upset? Sol gently took her arm. Pearl, maybe we should give them some privacy. But Simon wasn't interested in privacy. This is impossible. You can't disinherit family. There are laws. Bruce spoke with professional calm. Actually, Mr. Willis, California probate law fully supports your father's right to distribute his estate as he sees fit. The documentation is legally ironclad. I'll contest it in court. Simon's voice rose, drawing stares. This won't stand. Please do, I said. Bruce has prepared for that possibility. The video recording of my competency evaluation should be particularly compelling to any judge. Fern was still scanning the documents, her practical mind calculating the losses, the house, the investments, everything. Bruce confirmed, the Oakland Children's Education Foundation and UC Berkeley Engineering Scholarship Fund are now the primary beneficiaries. Simon crumpled the papers in his fist, then immediately smoothed them out, as if that would change their contents. This is insane. You're throwing away your family over one stupid argument. One stupid argument? My voice remained level, but I felt Martha's spirit strengthening my resolve. Simon, you took $20,000 from me, excluded me from my own grandchildren's vacation, and threatened me when I objected. That's not an argument. That's betrayal. Mia tugged my jacket. Grandpa, why is Daddy yelling? I looked down at her concerned face, a pang of genuine sadness. These children would grow up wondering why their inheritance disappeared, never understanding their father's greed had cost them their future. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that have big consequences, I told her gently. Simon's desperation reached a new pitch. We'll get lawyers. We'll prove you were manipulated, that you're not thinking clearly. Bruce opened his own portfolio and handed Simon a business card. I'd be happy to provide documentation of your father's complete mental competency to any attorney you hire. Fair warning, frivolous litigation can be expensive. The family stood clustered around their vacation luggage, the happy memories of Hawaiian beaches already overshadowed by this new reality. Pearl still looked between faces, not fully comprehending. Sol, however, understood completely. His accounting background screamed disaster. Simon, he said quietly. Maybe you should have thought about consequences before you acted. Simon whirled on his father-in-law. Don't lecture me. This affects all of us. No, I said firmly. This affects the people who betrayed my trust. Your children are innocent. That's why I've established scholarship funds that will help children like them for generations. Bruce closed his portfolio with finality. Gentlemen, our business here is concluded. He turned towards the terminal exit, and I followed, leaving Simon's family to process their new reality amidst the cheerful chaos of returning travelers. Behind us, I could hear Simon's voice, still calling, still trying to negotiate, still unable to accept that some consequences are permanent. The walk through SFO's corridors felt entirely different from 3 weeks ago. Then, I was a discarded old man. Now, walking beside my attorney, I was someone who had reclaimed his dignity through principled action. Bruce and I said little during the elevator ride to the parking garage. The sheer weight of justice finally completed needed no commentary. That went exactly as planned, Bruce finally said as we reached his car. Better, I replied. Simon revealed his true character perfectly. No judge would overturn a will after hearing those threats. The drive home took us across the Bay Bridge as evening settled over San Francisco. The city lights reflected off the water, patterns Martha had always loved. I felt her presence, approving of the day's work. You know they'll try to contest it, Bruce said as we navigated through Oakland traffic. Let them. Every lawyer they hire will tell them the same thing you told me. The documentation is ironclad. Bruce pulled into my driveway as the automatic porch light flickered on. The house looked exactly as it had this morning, but everything felt transformed by the completion of justice. We shook hands beside his car. Thank you, Bruce. You made this possible. You did the hard work, Lee. Standing up for yourself took real courage. After his taillights disappeared, I unlocked my front door and stepped into the quiet sanctuary of my home. The familiar smell of furniture polish, the distant tick of Martha's grandmother clock. They welcomed me back. In the kitchen, I made a simple dinner. Scrambled eggs, toast, a cup of tea. No need to accommodate anyone else's preferences or schedule. Just food I enjoyed, eaten at my own pace. The evening light slanted through the dining room windows, illuminating the family photos on the mantelpiece. Simon's college graduation, his wedding to Fern, pictures of the grandchildren at various ages. They were still family, yes, but now I could look at them without feeling the bitter sting of betrayal. My favorite armchair beckoned from the living room window. I settled into its familiar embrace with my tea, looking out at the garden Martha had planted and I'd maintained for 3 years. These last few weeks had transformed me from a victim to an advocate, from someone who accepted mistreatment to someone who demanded justice. Martha would have been proud of the man I'd become. Or perhaps the man I'd remembered how to be. My phone sat on the side table, turned off since leaving the airport. No doubt Simon was still trying to call, still believing he could negotiate his way out of consequences. But some lessons, I realized, could only be learned, never taught. Tomorrow, the charitable organizations would receive my calls. The Oakland Children's Education Foundation, UC Berkeley's engineering school, the senior services program, worthy causes run by grateful people who truly understood stewardship. My money would fund violin lessons for children whose parents worked multiple jobs. It would pay for engineering textbooks for students who couldn't afford them. It would provide meals and companionship for seniors forgotten by their own families. Real good out in the world. Instead of funding more vacations I'd be excluded from. The sun set behind the Oakland hills, painting my living room in shades of gold and amber. Somewhere across the bay, Simon's family was probably still processing the magnitude of their changed circumstances. Pearl confused. Soul quietly calculating. Fern planning damage control. And Simon. Simon would be learning in the hardest way possible that actions truly do have consequences. I finished my tea as darkness settled over the neighborhood. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. More phone calls, possibly legal papers from desperate attorneys, the logistics of updating bank accounts. But tonight, I sat in my own chair in my own house, surrounded by the quiet dignity of a man who'd finally reclaimed his self-respect. Martha's wisdom had guided me through the darkest period of family betrayal to this moment of peaceful resolution. Justice served, lessons learned, a future secured. It was enough. It was perfect. It was finally, completely mine.